Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Saints Insider Post-Game Show. I'm Zach Ewing with Jeff Duncan. Not a whole lot to say about that one, Jeff. The Saints lose to the Green Bay Packers 34-0. Actually, there is a lot to say about exactly how bad of a loss that was. But just to start with, Jeff's Times-Picayune lead columnist, of course, for the sports section. And Jeff, you've been following the Saints now for 25 years, and that has to rank right up there with their poorest performances in that time.
Yeah, I was scrambling at the end there to try and find out where it ranked, Zach. Just in terms of point differential, it was tied for 14th worst in franchise history and the worst since that ugly Katrina season in 2005. They lost to the very same Green Bay Packers 52-3. I was at that game. That was miserable. It's got to be the worst I've seen since then. Not only that, you're the only team to be shut out in the NFL all season. And look, it looked like a mismatch on paper. The Saints were really, shorthanded offensively, and it just was over from the very beginning. I mean, the first three times Green Bay had the ball, they scored touchdowns, and then they just kind of put it in cruise control. Just a kind of a lifeless performance. And to be honest with you, not that unexpected once the Saints were eliminated from the playoffs, the meager hopes they had. You could kind of see it maybe going this way. But for this team and this interim head coach, we'd seen a lot of fight out of them previously, and we didn't see much tonight.
Yeah, we talked on Friday's Saints Insider podcast. Look, the NFL is weird. Crazy things happen. The Saints have played hard for Darren Rizzy, but the air just kind of all went out of the balloon tonight, especially early on. And we'll show Mark's comment here that played hard in the refs. I don't agree with that in the least. I don't know. I mean, there may have been a call or two, but like there was no way the Packers were ever going to lose that game. Saints pinned them deep after giving up the early touchdown. Packers go 96 yards on 17 plays. Saints go 3 and out. Packers get it back, score again. I mean, it's just nothing there to stop them. Do want to let you know that the Saints Insider podcast post-game show is brought to you by Tulane Doctors. Now at East Jefferson General Hospital, Tulane Doctors are bringing academic medicine to more patients in new communities. Look for the shield to know the future of medicine is here. Call 504-988-5000 to schedule with any Tulane doctor or visit tulanedoctors.com. Going to bring on Rod Walker, our other Times-Picayune columnist as well, joining the show. And if you guys can't tell, we did not go up to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field for this one. The travel budget shrinks a little bit when the team is 5-9 and looking to 5-10, and that's where we're at this year, which is just all fine and well because this was, Rod, this was as ugly as it gets. We were just saying it's the first shutout loss in the NFL by any team this year. It was the Saints' worst loss since the Katrina season of 2005, just their third shutout loss this century. As bad as it could get on national TV in every way.
Yeah, I actually tweeted out a national TV stat too. The Saints were outscored 93-23 in their 3 primetime games this season with, the Chiefs, the Broncos, and tonight. So, I mean, it was just a really bad showing. All 3 of those showings were bad, but this was as bad as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, there's usually some positive you can highlight, Jeff, coming out of a game. Some young player who played well, some unit that did better than expected. Like, I'm struggling to even come up with that tonight. There was just nothing out there.
Oh, there was positives that we didn't have to go up there for it. That's the positive I took out of it. I mean, it was look, it shaped up to be this way. I know y'all have been making fun of me all year for picking the Saints, but this is the one game where I could just see this happening. I didn't see any way the Saints could compete, because all of the strengths that Green Bay has are what the weaknesses have been for the Saints this year. And then we saw, Eric McCoy went out again. Just the injuries mounting. They had no playmakers on offense. And once they got behind, it was Katie bar to the door. So, a Green Bay team that was motivated. The only hope I thought the Saints might have in a game like this is if Green Bay would overlook them. But there was no way they were going to do that while they're trying to chase the Vikings and Lions. And you could see they were into the game from the very beginning, their body language. And the Saints had all the classic signs of a team that's not focused are not energized. A lot of missed tackles tonight on defense. I mean, we talk about the injuries, but the Saints front seven was almost all healthy. Nathan Shepard was really the only guy that wasn't out there. And they were just getting bullied at the point of attack. I thought Green Bay could kind of do almost what they wanted. It felt like a scrimmage at times. It was so easy for them to move the ball. It was not that unexpected to me, but it's still very disappointing. And I know Darren Rizzy's got to be really disappointed with the effort.
Yeah, it was dreary on both sides of the ball. And like you said, Jeff, the offense, you can make some valid excuses for the offense. You don't have Derek Carr, you don't have Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Taysom Hill, Rashid Shaheed, Eric McCoy goes out early again. It was always going to be tough for this offense. Now, they could have done a little bit better than 0, but it was always going to be tough. The defense, on the other hand, Rod, man, I don't know what this was a very proud defense that was top 5, top 7 in the NFL as short as 2 years ago. They just got old all at once. Some of the younger guys aren't playing well, aren't coming into their own, and the Packers got whatever they wanted. They finished at 5.9 yards per play, but that was a lot worse in the first half. I don't have that number in front of me, but I mean, it just felt like Green Bay could get whatever it wanted whenever it wanted.
Yeah, I mean, they just manhandled them up front. You saw it on the opening drive. There was a play when Tyron gets run over there, and they were just like way more physical than the Saints. It actually looked like it didn't look like two NFL teams playing. I mean, they were just overmatched like we've never seen before. And I mean, Green Bay could have scored every time they had the ball. It felt like. I mean, you just never, even if the Saints had scored, you know they weren't going to ever stop that team. And I mean, they were just that much better than them. And it kind of shows you how the Saints have a long way to go. I mean, they're like so far behind, and they're not nearly as close as they thought they were. I think playing that bad division kind of gives you this false sense that, okay, we're right there, but they're not right there.
Yeah, and look, they've won these games recently against the Giants and the Browns, and you just see the difference when they line up against a real bona fide like playoff caliber team. I mean, they just can't even compete. They are the Giants and the Browns. I mean, that's what I think is frustrating a lot of fans, and rightfully so, is you keep hearing the Saints almost delusionally saying they've got a good – look, I know they've got a lot of injuries. I get it. But, you just keep hearing them tout that they believe they've got a really good team or got a good team, and it's just not adding up because when they line up against these good teams, we see kind of the results.
Yeah, 100%. I don't want to spend too much time more on this game in particular. We should turn the page and kind of talk about where this is all going, as you guys are. But we will give a few stats. First, I'll show Glenn's. This is very long. I won't read the whole thing. But he says it's boring to watch. There's no characters on this team, no one to root for. I don't think that's true. There's characters. It's just that if they don't play well and the team isn't playing well, you don't get to know them. Jamal Williams is a great character. Alvin Kamara is kind of a character. Like they have them. Colin Saunders is a great, Cam Jordan. Those guys all have a lot of personality. But if the team's terrible, it's just not going to get it done. Keep showing your comments. We'll continue to show them live. Daniel says Mickey Loomis needs to go. David says the defense was disappointing. And guys, speaking of disappointing, I kind of saw this coming a little bit. Spencer Rattler has this exciting second half last week where he nearly leads a comeback victory over the Washington Commanders. But Jeff, you pointed out a couple times on the podcast this week, that was not all real. There was a little bit of fool's gold in that comeback. He was aided by, I think, 3 roughing the passer penalties, which he drew another one tonight. It's kind of weird. He's drawn so many roughing the passers. There was also a dropped interception by Frankie Louvu. The Commanders kind of helped him out by giving him the ball back in good field position a couple of times. And so anyway, there was a lot of fool's gold in that comeback. And now you have this admittedly very tough assignment against a good defense without a lot of starting players. And Spencer Rattler just was not ready for prime time. I mean, he had 50% completion, 153 yards passing, a couple of turnovers that ended the 2 drives that they did have going, and it just wasn't there tonight. Yeah,
you could expect some regression in a game like this. I mean, that's a really good team. And he had such a tough assignment without so many playmakers sidelined tonight. But I think we see a lot of the things that was kind of the scouting report on Rattler when he came out of South Carolina. Very low accuracy rate. I mean, his completion percentage is around 50%, which is really low by NFL standards. And you can see a lot of the times he's just kind of wildly. I think Troy Aikman or Joe Buck on the broadcast, and I even mentioned how hard he throws some of his balls when you need a little touch on him. He's, you can see why he's inaccurate and why he's going to have a low completion percentage. And that's something that he's going to have to improve upon if he wants to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And he's a young guy put in a very difficult position, but I think, he needs a little more time. I hate to quote Dennis Allen here, but he needs a little more time in the oven. He needs some time, and rightfully so. He's a 5th-round draft pick thrust into a difficult situation, but I think people have gotten ahead of themselves with Spencer Rattler, and I think that's understandable because I think Saints fans are just so desperate for hope of any kind right now that they have funneled it all into different vessels. It was Clint Kubiak early in the year, and the scheme was going to be it. And then when that didn't materialize, they immediately turned to Spencer Rattler. I just think it's a sign of where the franchise is. There's just not a lot of hope, and you're trying to find it anywhere you can right now.
Yeah, I showed Angela's comment a minute ago. It's not Rattler's fault with 7 starters out. And I don't – like, Rod, it's not fair to give up hope on this guy, as Jeff said. It's not what we're saying. He was definitely in a difficult position tonight. But just in a microcosm, he had the drive where he makes this jump throw to get out of pressure and completes a pass, I think, to Dante Pettis. It was just really an amazing highlight reel play. And immediately on the next snap, he's like so full of confidence in himself that he then tries to make an impossible throw into double coverage to Foster Moreau, and the ball never had a chance of anything but an interception. And that's the kind of decision-making that just needs to improve.
Yeah, and he had a really good completion in the first half, but I mean, I don't even know how that ball got there, but it's somehow that could have been easily picked off. And he takes some risk, and obviously he has to do a better job of taking care of the ball. I mean, he fumbled again tonight. I think that's his 4th one of the season, 3rd one that led to a turnover. But I mean, he didn't have a lot to work with. When you I looked at his, he completed 15 passes. 7 of those went to a running back, 4 went to tight ends, and the other 4 went to wide receivers. I mean, hopefully some of these receivers can get healthy, at least get Marquez Valdez-Scantling back maybe, next week against the Raiders, and see what he can do against them if he gets to start. But, I mean, there's room for progress for sure. Kind of hard to gauge him just based on what he had out there. But so I don't know if he's the future of this team, but I don't know if I'm, going into next season now he's the guy. But there are some signs that he could be good, but like whoever was that Jeff that said, he probably needs some more time in the oven. He definitely has to, just get some more experience.
Yeah, 100%. We'll continue to talk about this one. We do owe you a commercial break here, and then we're going to go big picture, both the last 2 games of this season, and then, of course, at this point, it's time to look forward to the offseason for the 5-10 Saints. So they lose to the Packers 34-0. We'll be right back after this on the Saints Insider postgame show.
At Tulane Doctors, we know your health can't wait.
So we made booking appointments easier than ever.
Just dial 988-5000 to book with any physician, any specialty.
Whether at East Jefferson General Hospital or one of our other locations.
Because your health is our top priority.
And because navigating healthcare should be simple,
personal,
accessible.
When you see the shield, you'll know the future of medicine is here.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. Parlay Builder gives you all the game day action from all across the league. Multiple games, legs, and props, all in one spot. And It's so quick and easy, you can keep your focus on the games and your nachos. Or if you're focusing on one game, remember, you can place your same game parlays live during the action. Caesars Sportsbook, the only sportsbook app with Caesars rewards.
Welcome back to the Saints Insider postgame show here on the Saints on NOLA.com YouTube channel. If you're hanging out with us tonight, we appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with your friends, all that good stuff. It all helps us out. Seeing a lot of comments, guys, as we continue to talk about Spencer Rattler's struggles, saying, hey, why didn't he get benched like Jake Haener did last week? Maybe Haener deserves another try. As we look forward to the last 2 weeks of the season, and I know they're still giving lip service to the fact that maybe Derek Carr could come back from his injury. I don't see the point of doing that unless Carr really wants to get out there and face his old team next week, and he's ready to do that. But I don't think you flip-flop again, Rod. I think you stick with Rattler this time and just see what you got. Give him 2 more games.
Yeah, I think the larger the sample size, the better you can gauge how good he is. And so I think you stick with him. I don't think that the team's not in a position where they're trying to win a game or get to play. I mean, just let's see what he can do, because you really need to evaluate him. And, that'll be his, 4th start? Or 5th start if he starts against the Raiders. Fifth start, yeah. So, I mean, I just think you need to get some more, just give him some more reps. See how much he's progressing from week to week. I mean, he's a rookie. So the more reps he gets, the better chance he has of getting better down the road. So I think you have to go with him. And you mentioned Carr. I do think Carr probably had that Raiders game circled on his calendar when the schedule came out, but I don't see the point of doing that.
I think he told Lisa Salters tonight that he's still having a lot of pain in that fractured hand. When I heard that, that's when I thought, I don't know if he's going to play or not against the Raiders. Okay. After hearing that, because I thought he would come back too, but just hearing that little sideline interaction with her leads me to believe he might be sitting.
And it's a short week, so I mean, you don't yeah.
And they're 5-10. Like I mean, at some point you just have to. And we could talk about Darren Rizzy now too. If you're Darren Rizzy, obviously you need to try to win some games. He's still auditioning for the head coaching job. Tonight was a big blow for him. I think a lot of what he's kind of making his case on is that the team plays hard for him and they play with a lot of emotion and passion. And Jeff, you mentioned you didn't see it tonight. I do think this game could have gone differently. The Packers had a couple of 3rd and 6s early, and the Saints jumped offside on both of them to make them 3rd and 1. And then they also converted 2 4th and 2s on that 17-play, 96-yard drive. And that really took whatever emotion and passion and gumption they had left was out of the sails at that point. But if you're Darren Rizzy, you hang your hat on this team plays hard for me. And I didn't see that tonight.
Yeah, look, I think that it's understandable at this point. The Saints are not going to play with. I mean, they can see the lineup. They're professionals. They know they're kind of shorthanded, and the Packers never gave them any hope. I think that was another key is they came out, showed life, showed energy, got that touchdown right off the bat. That kind of sends a message. We're not overlooking you. But the thing that I thought was most egregious was just the clock management at the end of the first half. I mean, that's on Darren Rizzy. He's got a rookie quarterback out there. It's on Clint Kubiak too. They can't botch that. I mean, they've got to give help to the rookie quarterback. And both of them were asleep at the wheel. I mean, they let 30 seconds run off the clock basically, because I don't think they knew that the clock got rewound after that ball got fumbled out of bounds. That was really bad. And it wasn't going to matter in the long run, but those kind of things I think show a little bit of Rizzy's inexperience as a head coach.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was going to mention was that clock management. It was pretty bad. And, and I know he's a guy that's really fiery and coached with a lot of emotions. And he was kind of like trying to get on the refs about that. And that was, it was on him,
Yep.
I was going to mention one other moment that I didn't like, and it really had no bearing on the final score, but it's 24-0 Packers with 12 minutes left in the game, and the Saints had a 4th and 8, and they were at midfield, and they punted. And I kind of thought, okay, who cares? You're going to punt. But if you're Darren Rizzy and your whole shtick, again, is the team plays hard for me, and we're going to fight in this together, and we're going to finish and all this stuff, that was waving the white flag to me. I don't like that if that's your type, if that that's the kind of coach you want to be. Technically, it's a 3-possession game. I mean, like if you want to have the never say die attitude, you don't punt there. And he did. And I kind of felt like he looked a little defeated tonight. And again, the injuries, all that sort of thing. Let's turn the page to the last 2 games. They play the Raiders at home Sunday, and then the final Sunday, or I guess it could technically be a Saturday game in Week 18, will be in Tampa Bay. We had a comment a little while ago. The young blood said, "Do you think we'll see Clyde Edwards-Helaire play against the Raiders?" I don't know the answer to that, but I do think this is time to it's time to go see what you've got and see who's coming back on this team, and make your kind of final evaluations. I don't see what else is left, guys.
Yeah, look, I think you're playing for pride right now, and probably some jobs are going to be on the line for some of these guys for sure. If there's going to be a coaching change, and that's what it looks like it's going to be, there's usually a pretty heavy roster turnover when you bring in new coaching staff. So these guys got to put their resumes on tape. And I think there's going to be some heavy, like Rod said, there's going to be some heavy evaluation going on here in these games to see who's bringing it, who's not, who's on board, who's not. So there's a lot to play for these guys individually, but team-wise, there's nothing left but pride and trying to avoid. I think the worst season we've seen is 7-10, right? A few years ago. Yeah. Excuse me. So I think you don't want to end up being the team with the worst Saints record in the last 2 decades. And I think that's kind of where we're headed.
Yeah, they haven't been. Well, they were 3-13 in 2005, but there's only the 3rd time they've lost 10 games in a season. They did it 2 years ago in Allen's first year. But I think this Raiders game is going. It's going to have a preseason feel to it because the Raiders aren't very good either, and just going to be 2 bad teams. And again, guys like Rattler, some of these young receivers can try to step up and show what they can do. But you like to see a guy like you wish Bud Means could maybe come back and play, but that's not. I think is he already out? I can't even remember. But just you want to see some of these younger guys step up because they're going to have to at this point. There's nothing. You're not playing for anything at this point. I'd be curious to see what the dome looks like on Sunday.
Well, you could see tonight, like I think you're right, Rod. Like playing the young guys. I mean, they're out there trying to make their mark right now. They're trying to find their way in the league, and you could see Rattler. I mean, he was competing. I mean, he was upset when things weren't going well. I mean, I like to see that, and that's what you get with the young guys. So, let's put as many young players out there as you can because they're going to fight. And save some of the veterans are going to be back. I mean, what you got with some of those guys, and get something out of these last few games because otherwise there's not much to play for here. And that's something I should say we have not seen a lot of. It is a testament to the franchise that they have been competitive for a long time, and I think that's why fans are so frustrated because they're just not used to it. But they're playing irrelevant games right now, and I bet we could count on our hand the last 15 years that this team's had games that don't mean anything, that they haven't been in the playoff hunt. And that says something about always being in the mix, even if you're fighting in a bad division for a wild card spot or the division crown, at least you got something to play for. This game on Sunday, it'll be interesting to see just how many people show up at the Dome because it's not exactly a showcase game for the NFL.
No doubt about it. I mean, at least that Week 18 game, it looks like a pretty good chance the Saints could play spoiler against the Bucs and motivate themselves in that way because the Bucs will need that win in the NFC South race. But this game next week is really. I was laughing to myself when Malik Willis came into the game for Green Bay tonight because the Saints faced him in preseason Week 3 when he was with Tennessee. And that was always like kind of the traditional preseason game where nobody plays. And you're like, well, what is Malik Willis doing playing? And then they traded him to the Packers. And here he is mopping up against the Saints in Week 16. So if you're just joining us, and there's a lot of you hanging out with us tonight, so we appreciate that. Hit the like button for us. I know you don't like the result, but it does help our video if you do hit that button for us. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back. We're committed to this thing. A big offseason coming up, a couple of podcasts coming every week. As we go on, and Paul says the Saints need to hire John Gruden. I don't know how realistic that is, Jeff, but there was a report on the Monday Night Football pregame tonight from Adam Schefter who mentioned a couple of names for the Saints coaching search. So we can kind of wrap up with that discussion. He mentioned Aaron Glenn, who's the Lions defensive coordinator, And then Mike Vrabel, who I think, a lot of fans would see as a home run hire. He led a lot of very good Tennessee Titans teams. Are those names tracking with what you think the Saints will do? And how realistic do you think either one is?
Well, I think Mike Vrabel would be exactly the kind of guy that they need to hire. I don't know how realistic it is. I haven't heard him in some of the sources I'm talking to, but also think it's still pretty early in the search. I know they're doing some due diligence, trying, get prepared once the season's over. But I think I've said this before I wrote this. I think it's important for them to get kind of a real leader, because I think it's going to be some heavy lifting. Like Rod said, I don't think this is going to be a one-season turnaround. I think they've got a long road ahead. So they've got to get someone that can build culture back in the building and be a strong leader, because I think the organization needs that, frankly. I think they need kind of an alpha mentality in that building, and he fits that bill. But will they be willing to do that? They've been successful with a guy like Sean Payton, who was that guy, but I don't know if they're comfortable bringing in another guy like Vrabel, who wants total control after what happened to him in Tennessee. So we'll see if that were to play out. Aaron Glenn, I know they're familiar with him. I know he interviewed well last time. Certainly he's familiar with the Saints, but there's a big segment of the fan base right now that just wants a complete, clean, fresh start. And I don't think Aaron Glenn would represent that, since he was here under the Payton regime. So we'll see how that plays out. But I like Aaron Glenn a lot, and I think he's going to definitely get some head coaching opportunities because of what he's done up in Detroit.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned Vrabel in my column tonight, but like Aaron Glenn, he's a guy that obviously he's a coordinator and on a really good team, but you just wonder if the Saints are they really ready to move away from the Sean Payton era, because they've been trying to hold on to it for so long. And if you hire Aaron Glenn, to me, that's kind of what you're doing, is just holding on to it and, thinking that's the way. And, I think the fans kind of want to see a fresh start at this point. They want to see.
I tell you what, I would say this, not to cut you off, but I think both those guys, now that makes sense. Talking to some people that are kind of close to the search, they think they might be a little more leaning toward a defensive-minded coach, because I think they like this offensive staff and they'd like to keep Clint Kubiak. And if you bring in an Aaron Glenn or even a Vrabel, you might be able to keep this offensive staff intact, who I think that the organization is really high on. So that does make sense for both those guys.
And again, with Vrabel, is he going to like coming into a situation where you're telling him, here's your offensive staff, this is what we want to do, when he's used to having control?
Right.
It's a tricky situation. What chance does Darren Rizzy have at this point of the permanent job? Obviously it seems like it went down tonight. His argument was, look how hard we played. We were in every game against playoff teams. Can't say that anymore. His record is now 3-3. He does have 2 games left, but what chance do you give him of just kind of being maybe a bridge coach for this franchise?
I give him a chance just because of the way that the front office thinks about, just kind of like being comfortable with the guy. They're comfortable with him, and they may just say, okay, let's give him a full season and see what he does. But I don't know if tonight, I don't know if it really hurt his chances. There were some things I thought were definitely like a little concerning. I thought the game management, like we talked about earlier, was a concern. But I don't know if it's, when you look at the hand he was dealt tonight with what he had, I think, maybe they overlooked that. I don't know.
Yeah, he could have really helped himself tonight, I think.
Definitely,
he missed that chance. Yeah.
I think if he won tonight, I think have to give him serious consideration, but we see how it turned out.
Not close.
I look at it like, he's earned the right to be considered strongly, but I think you've got to go through the process. This is such a big decision. I think the franchise is at a crossroads that you have to exhaust every possible outlet to bring in, be very thorough, explore all avenues. And what I mean by that is assistant coaches, even college coaches, even if you have to find like a great retired coach that's been out of the game for a couple of years. I just think this is an important hire. So you've got to go through the process. And then at the end of the day, Darren Rizzy rises to the top in that process and he's the best one, then yeah, you hire him. But I don't think you just want to anoint him after whatever's happened, wins or losses, no matter what. If you'd beat the Packers, I still would have said that. I just think it's too important right now to just narrow the field that narrow.
I think one argument you've made for Rizzy in the past few weeks, Jeff, is number one, he probably comes a little cheaper than Vrabel or some of these other names that we're talking about. And for a franchise that's, in salary cap hell and it relies heavily on ticket sales, which we can't imagine are going to go up this offseason. I mean, like that is one factor. They still owe money to Dennis Allen. If they get rid of the offensive coaching staff, they would still owe money to some of those guys. So that's part of it. And the other part of it is we talk about the salary cap situation. This team is kind of stuck with what they've got. Derek Carr, you're going to owe him $51 million, whether you keep him or not next season. So he's probably coming back. You've got a lot of other aging veterans. You don't want to touch their contracts, so they're probably coming back. And I think one argument for Rizzy is just, hey, let him have a shot as an NFL head coach. And if he can't do very well with a poor roster, then it's a reset couple of years anyway, and maybe that helps us, reset for the future and become a more attractive situation.
Yeah, but I think they're going to lose a lot of fans if they do that. I think fans want a clean start across the board. Now, I know you can't do everything just what the fans want. I mean, there's realistic, expectations of how you manage the roster. But I just get the sense in talking to fans around town, and man, a lot of people, I'm sure, Rod, you're getting approached the same way. A lot of people right now have opinions, and more than I've heard in a long time. People are fed up. I mean, I think they're just frustrated, and I think they see what we all see, and that is Sean Payton and Drew Brees were here for a decade and a half, and this franchise won like it's never won before. And as soon as those guys left, it's kind of regressed into being exactly what it was before they were here. And so I think just a little deductive reasoning here. I think people have added up that, they need some kind of fresh start. They don't know if it's going to happen or where it's going to come from because the organization at the top hasn't been real transparent. We haven't heard from Mickey Loomis or Gail Benson since they fired Dennis Allen. So I think, at some point we're going to have to hear the leaders of the organization step forward and give us a direction on where the organization's going.
I'm trying to think, did we even hear from them then, did we?
No.
Other than a statement. I mean, we got a statement from them,
No.
a written statement, but so, yeah.
Mickey Loomis has his weekly radio show with WWL, and that's really been the only media appearance he's made. And of course, they're partnered with the Saints. I mean, nothing against the guys at WWL, but Mickey Loomis can go to them before that interview and say, no questions about this, or I want to address that. It's not a true open interview. And so, I mean, that's something really to look forward to those first few days of the offseason, I think, when Mickey will give his post-game or postseason press conference. Okay, we'll wrap things up. It's almost 11 o'clock here on a Monday night, holiday season. We appreciate you all hanging out tonight. Guys, final thoughts on a night the Saints muster less than 200 yards. They're defeated 34-0. I know expectations were low for this one, even with a full-strength team going to Lambeau Field in primetime in late December is always going to be a challenge. So it was never the expectation that the Saints were going to win or anything like that. But this couldn't have gone a whole lot worse.
Yeah, Gail Benson should send ABC and ESPN an apology for that showing tonight. I mean, it was just hard to watch. You could tell early on which direction that game was going, and Saints were just never in it. They could play another 4 quarters, and Saints still probably wouldn't score on there.
Yeah, you know what else? It's hard to watch because the Saints got a lot of prideful players. They got guys that have won at a high level. They've been a part of some great teams here, and it's hard to watch, see them go through it. They're professionals. They're being paid a lot of money. I get it, but it's still hard. They're competitive guys, and they put a lot of time and effort in there. You can just see the frustration, the body language on some of these guys. We know them fairly well, and you just know that this is eating them alive inside because of all the time and effort they put in, and to see it play out the way it is and knowing there's a lot of uncertainty coming up here in the next few weeks, I think it's going to be difficult to turn this thing around even in these last 2 games.
No doubt about it. I do want to end the night on a positive note. Steve is watching from down under. It's Tuesday morning there, right? Happy Christmas Eve, Steve. So we appreciate you watching, everybody hanging out. Hey, we'll be back. We are normally a Wednesday, Friday normal podcast. Obviously, we're not going to do a Christmas Day show this week, but you can check out the Saints Insider podcast on Fridays. Usually air those shows around 3 o'clock Central Time in the afternoon. So check us out then. If you're new to the show, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and you can see us on Friday. We'll preview Saints Raiders, but I think for the most part, we're going to continue this discussion because, as we've said, what's there to preview in Saints Raiders? It's going to be a dead rubber, as they say across the pond.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough, Zach. We're counting on you, our fearless host, to carry the torch on these last few podcasts.
And I heard from Jim Derry, next week's postgame show, Jim's not going to be around. So I've got a filibuster for like 30 minutes by myself. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have some hot tea for my throat and take a lot of commercial breaks, I think. But we'll see you for the postgame show next week too. We're brought to you by Tulane Doctors. Again, thank you all for watching. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all of that good stuff. And we will see you Friday on the next Saints Insider.